On December 9th, 2015, the Arizona Diamondbacks made a jaw-dropping move, trading away the number 1 overall pick of the 2015 draft just a mere 6 months after drafting him. But why would the Diamondbacks make such a trade, you might ask? Well, at the time, the Diamondbacks were ran by former pitching coach, agent, and current A's Hall of Fame pitcher Dave Stewart, who had only been appointed GM about a year before the trade, becoming GM on September 25th, 2014. On the other side of the deal were the Braves, who in 2015 were a rebuilding team that were in the midst of a massive sell-off, and this included a young and controllable arm in one Shelby Miller. After being acquired in the Jason Hayward deal, the 24-year-old righty threw to an ERA of 3.02 in just over 200 innings, which was good for an F4 of 3.7. But while he had a good ERA, his FIP and xFIP seemed to show that he might have been getting a little lucky. But still, Shelby was a very good pitcher. He was young, and he had 3 more years of cheap control left. And so, on December 9th, 2015, the Arizona Diamondbacks made a jaw-dropping move, trading away the number 1 overall pick of the 2015 draft, just a mere 6 months after drafting him, along with Aaron Blair and Ender Inciarte, in exchange for Shelby Miller and Gabe Speier. President of Baseball Operations at the time, John Hart, said, "We wanted to make it painful for them with the players that we got back. They are players that we think are going to be a big part of our future." But who were these other players that came over with Dansby? Ender Inciarte was an immediate producer for the Braves, putting up 4.7 F4 in his first year in Atlanta. This was mostly due to his elite defense. I mean, just watch this clip where he fakes out a runner by pretending to not know where the ball is, and then he guns them down at second. That also wasn't some rookie that he did that to either. That was 10-year Major League veteran Carlos Ruiz. So it must have been one heck of a fake out to get 10-year Major League veteran at the time, Carlos Ruiz. Ender would follow this up with 2 more well above average years for Atlanta, posting 3.7 F4 in 2017 and 3.5 F4 in 2018. If you guys are wondering a bit about F4, here's a short explanation for you. In 2019, Ender would end up only producing 0.9 F4, which as we just showed you before would make him a scrub. This was, however, in only 230 plate appearances in an injury-shortened year. If you don't know, a full season is somewhere around 600 plate appearances. So, on a full season aggregate, he was still a solid starter. This, however, was followed by an atrocious negative 0.6 F4 in 131 plate appearances in 2020. And finally, 0.0 F4 in 89 plate appearances in 2021, before being designated for assignment by the Braves on July 24th, 2021. Ender ended up producing 12.2 F4 during his 6 seasons in Atlanta. The Braves also received Aaron Blair, who was a former top draft pick himself, going 36th overall in the 2013 MLB draft. Upon arriving in Atlanta in 2016, Blair made 15 starts, pitching to an ERA of 7.59, a FIP of 6.15, and an xFIP of 5.66. This was worth a whopping negative 0.6 F4. He would follow this up in 2017 by throwing 127 innings at Gwinnett, good for an ERA of 5.02, a FIP of 4.23, and an xFIP of 4.71. Despite all of this, he was called upon to pitch again one last time in Atlanta, where he gave up 5 earned runs, walked 5 batters in only 3 innings against the Diamondbacks? Blair was finally released on May 31st, 2018 and was worth in total for the Braves negative 0.8 F4. Now let's take a look into what the Diamondbacks received. As I mentioned earlier, Shelby Miller was a 25-year-old stud who had just posted his best season to date with an F4 of 3.7, along with an ERA of 3.02 and a FIP of 3.45. He was a young, emerging frontline starter at this point. So how did it end up? Well, unfortunately for Shelby and the Diamondbacks, in 2016 his numbers regressed, and other problems such as injuries quickly arose. In his debut season with the Diamondbacks, he threw to a 6.15 ERA in just 101 innings due to injuries, and was somehow good for 0.6 F4. He followed that up in 2017 with an ERA of 4.09 over 22 innings, worth 0.4 F4. And then, in 2019, he had an eye-popping ERA of 10.69.
Nice.
He was worth negative 0.3 F4 before finally being non-tendered by the Diamondbacks on November 30th, 2018. Aside from the aforementioned coveted young righty Shelby Miller, the Diamondbacks also received young pitching prospect Gabe Spire, who reached Double A in 2016 and stayed there until being traded with Elvis Luciano to the Kansas City Royals for John Jay on June 6, 2018. So far, the Diamondbacks have received a grand total of 0.7 F4 and have 0 players left to show for it. Unless you count John Jay, of course, the guy who they traded Spire for. In 320 at-bats with Arizona, Jay put up a weighted runs created plus of 72 and was good for negative 0.9 F4. Not the best look for the Diamondbacks, or Dave Stewart, who, by the way, was fired on October 3rd, 2016. Now on to the number 1 overall pick of the 2015 draft, Mr. Dansby Swanson. A quick riser through the minors, Dansby debuted with Atlanta on August 16, 2016, and he would go on to post a weighted runs created plus of 107, along with a slightly below average strikeout and walk rate. But for only being 22 at the time, those were still very good numbers. His 1.0 F4 and 145 plate appearances was promising, but his batting average on balls in play of 383 showed he was in line for some regression. And in 2017, Dansby struggled mightily at the plate, posting a weighted runs created plus of 63, while still posting mediocre strikeout and walk rates. This is good for an F4 of negative 0.2. But still, between his glove, arm, and the potential his bat had, Dansby was a big league shortstop, and he was now here to stay. As a 24-year-old in 2018, Lieutenant Dans posted an F4 of 1.4, despite only having a weighted runs created plus of 79. Still not league average, but improving. 2019 and 2020 both saw Dansby improve at the plate, while also turning in better defensive numbers. But it wasn't until 2021 when Dansby would put it all together, where in part thanks to his 25 home runs, Dansby was worth 3.4 F4, good for the 12th best shortstop in the majors. Oh yeah, and the Braves won the World Series for the first time in 26 years, so that's pretty neat if you're a Braves fan. 2022 was unfortunately Dansby's walk year, and a career year, where Dansby was worth 6.4 F4, and the Braves let him walk in free agency, as they were unwilling to match the Cubs' 7-year, $177 million offer. So if you've been keeping track at home, this means the Diamondbacks received a grand total of 0.7 F4, while the Braves received 0.9 F4 and 230 plate appearances from Ender in 2019 alone. But over his career with the Braves, Ender would end up with a net 12.2 F4. Aaron Blair would be worth negative 0.8 F4, and the hometown kid from Marietta, Mr. Dansby Swanson, was well worth the hype, giving the Braves 16.3 F4. Oh yeah, and a World Series ring too. This gives the Braves a grand total of 27.7 F4 to the Diamondbacks 0.9. To put into perspective just how large of a number that is, as of the recording of this video in February 2024, Juan Soto has been worth 28.4 F4 so far in his career. So basically, the Braves acquired the value equivalent of the first 6 seasons of Juan Soto, and they only gave up 0.7 F4 to do it. Enjoyed what you saw? Don't miss out on more awesome content. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below to let us know your thoughts and requests for future videos.